A very good afternoon from wherever you are joining us. A very warm welcome to a special program where we shall be speaking sustainable agriculture and improvement of food systems across Africa. The theme is specifically building sustainable and resilient food systems for improved food security, nutrition and income of smallholder farmers in Africa. The discussion comes with the backdrop of increasing challenges that are facing the agricultural sector across the continent, including climate change and the effects that we are seeing on a daily basis. Experts from across all sectors are working tooth and nail to ensure that the soils are restored to their natural potential to be able to give us the kind of yield and productivity that the farmers across the continent want. It's a lot that you need to understand. I am Chris Higenyi, and of course I'm joined by a set of experts who will be helping us wade our way through what is no doubt a very complicated sector. I would like to introduce my guests, beginning with the gentleman on the far left, Andre Okiror, the head of market-oriented agriculture at Sasakawa Africa Foundation. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
Next to Okiror is Dr. Stella Kabidi. Is a lead regenerative agriculture at Sasakawa Africa Association. Thanks for joining us. And of course, we're also joined by Jacqueline Namsalisi. She's also an official from the Sasakawa Africa Association. You've heard the Sasakawa word a lot more already, and I would love to throw this very fast to Andre Okiror to help us understand what is the Sasakawa Africa Association.
Thank you so much. My name is Andy Okiror. I am the lead market-oriented agriculture in Sasakawa Africa Association, taking up all the African countries. Sasakawa Africa Association is an international NGO which was founded by three people. One was His Excellency Jimmy Carter, the President of USA. Dr. Norman Borlaug, the winner of the Green Revolution. It is believed that he saved more souls. Other than Jesus is Dr. Norman Borlaug because of the research that he did on grain to save the world. And then we have got Sasakawa himself. So how did they come about? You notice that there was famine that struck Ethiopia. And because of that famine, Sasakawa used to send relief, that let's help the people of Ethiopia. And after that, a question came in, so what? We can't continue sending relief. What should we do? And Dr. Norman Borlaug, the winner of the Green Revolution, came in and said we must develop the extension system so that we are able to produce more food other than giving food. So the Chinese say it's better to train someone to catch fish other than giving fish. So Dr. Norman Borlaug designed the extension system for Africa. And then after designing the extension system, they again thought, if we are to go to Africa, what are we going to do? How are we going to penetrate the African leaders? So the political arm was coming from His Excellency Jimmy Carter. So you find these three members were able to push in the Sasakawa Africa Association to make sure that there is food. And you know the extension worker ratio for example, in Uganda is 1 extension worker to 1,800. So Sasakawa had a number of programs like working with the universities to reduce the extension farmer ratio. We couldn't do this alone. We have been doing this in all the countries where we operate. We have MOUs with the government through the Ministry of Agriculture. So in Uganda, the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries is our key partner, and we have an MOU. We don't forget partners like MAIF, WFP, VODP, the districts. We work through the district structures until we get to the farmers. K+S Germany and K+S Germany, we were also able to work with them. And if you know the Grain Pulse Limited, the first fertilizer blending plant in Uganda, that was an initiative of Sasakawa Africa Association through Savannah Commodities, using the K+S funding, and then we have now seen the first fertilizer blending plant. UBL and Nippon Foundation, NARO, EU, we can't forget all those partners, JICA Japan, and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan has also helped us to make sure that we push this agenda. ABI Trust, AGRA, Harvest Plus, Grain Pulse, IITA, UFAS, AFAS, CIMIT, and credit institutions, all banks around, we have worked with them. So all those are key partners, and shall be talking about some of them and many others.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what Sasakawa is doing, we do what they call elephant implementation. We are very few if you come to our office, but what comes out is a big balloon of activities. And people are always asking, how are you able to do this? We couldn't do this alone without the partners, and without the ministry, without the government of Uganda having that. So that has been very key.
We shall be, of course, looking forward to knowing exactly what the big things are that you are doing out there. Now, in line with this afternoon's theme, which is building sustainable and resilient food systems for improved food security, nutrition and income of smallholder farmers in Africa, that alone sounds that we could be in a crisis that we are underestimating as a continent, and perhaps the various initiatives that are being undertaken are either not receiving the amount of amplification they need or being adopted as readily as they should be, especially by the farmers across the continent. Dr. Stella Kabiri, just take us through that particular preamble.
Yes, thank you very much. You're very right to say that we are in a crisis. Agriculture indeed is in crisis because first of all, what we produce from the soil is really highly degraded.
That's right.
I can give you an example. Almost 65% of the soils in Africa are degraded right now. And they are degraded in such a way that there is too much soil erosion. We lose the soil from soil erosion. Our farming systems are not building the soil back. We are just taking out of the soil. And then our population has also increased, and we have therefore moved, agricultural area into marginal areas that are not suitable for farming because of the big population. And also productivity has reduced. We have increased in acreage, the hectares that we are growing crops, but the productivity per hectare is very low. So with Sasakawa Africa Association, in our new strategic plan, we turned it into 3 pillars, which is regenerative agriculture that handles the soil, nutrient-sensitive agriculture that handles the nutrition, and also market-oriented agriculture. So we took the holistic approach of solving this problem and making sure that we can ensure resilient food systems in Africa. Now, in regards to regenerative agriculture, which I am heading at the Sasakawa Africa Association, we look at, we consider soil as the base. And our idea is we want to improve the soil health. And by the soil health, we mean we want to improve the microorganisms, the beneficial microorganisms in the soil, the organic matter in the soil, so that in a way that when the nutrients are available, the plants are able to uptake it. And then there's the issue of climate change that is that has even caused more problems on what we have added on the crisis of agriculture. And we work with a highly trained extension system and a team of extension workers in the field that we train on. We give this information to them, and they're able to give it to the farmers. So we have this spillover effect of the technologies that we promote with the farmers. Okay. And because the farmers are the ones that are directly dealing with the soil, it's not somebody in the ministry or anywhere, it is the farmers. So we make sure that this information is readily available for them. And we make them realize what is the biology of the soil, the physical structure or the chemical structure. They have to have this information because they are the ones that are handling directly the production of food.
Okay, that sounds very telling. Particularly interested in the fact that many of the farmers out there may not know actually what components of the soil are required for them to have the best possible harvest. Talking about the fact that farmers out there could be grappling with many of these issues that you help address as Sasakawa Africa Foundation. Let me come to Madame Jacqueline Namsalisi. The post-harvest challenges across Africa continue to be told. We know there are many farmers out there who do a good job, and at the end of it all, they grapple with access to markets or even inability to be able to store the foods or the produce that they come up with, and then at the end of the day, huge losses are registered. Does the association cater for the holistic process, and can they stand and say, here we are, we have our produce, and you can come in and do the rest of the work?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's nice to be here. Yes, that's a very important question, and as Sasakawa, we are very, very cognizant of the fact that there is a lot of food loss, and the food loss also contributes to the global warming from the yes, from what we know. And since we are very, very particular about reducing the climate change and working out with other partners, we hope that this is also a contribution from Sasakawa. Post-harvest losses can be categorized into two. We have the quality aspect. There is a post-harvest loss on the quality, but there is also post-harvest loss in quantity. So those are some of the issues that we talk our farmers into, and we work with them. We work, like the slogan puts it, working with the farmers. And we share experiences of what they know, what they can, what they've been doing. And we work with certain partners like the PICS, the Purdue Improved Crop Storage, for the hermetic technologies. And these are like the technologies that are going to ensure that our crops, especially the cereals and pulses, are kept for a very long time without the possibility of pest infestation or mold contamination, which will eventually produce the aflatoxins. And I believe this country has ever had an issue where the produce was actually, the maize particularly, was rejected at the border because of the poor handling of the maize. And this, to our economy, it is a huge impact. But also we are aware that the aflatoxins themselves cause health issues. And our population, we need to have the farmers themselves who deal with the food understand the levels, the stages where the food can be contaminated. So that is one way we can describe the quality losses. But also, like my colleagues have put it, we work with the extension workers. These are government workers whom we train like a TOT, and eventually they cascade down the trainings, and these trainings are specific on how we can reduce on the losses. This means at harvesting, when do we harvest? It should be timely harvesting. We see these days rains come, I think due to climate change, like Dr. Kabili has just talked about. And the rains, the rain finds our crops in the fields. Do we know contamination of aflatoxin is as a result of high levels of moisture and a bit of the oxygen and maybe the temperatures. It's a tropic environment. Africa is blessed with a tropic environment, but the same environment is good for the molds that are going to contaminate the maize. And then how do we deal with, how do we take the produce? How do we transport it from the point of harvest to where it's going to be stored? So all those elements, we take our farmers through them, and also we let them understand the different technologies that are available. And this is, we work with technology manufacturers and suppliers, and also the fabricators whom we train locally.
We'll be tackling those innovations a little bit later, especially with regard to how specifically Sasakawa Africa Foundation is rolling them out. But allow me just go to Andre Okrori and ask a question that rises out of what she has just said. The fact that some farmers out there across Africa could be farming or engaging in agriculture for the sake of it, because it's subsistence and they have to feed themselves, and not paying attention to markets out there. Because you can produce a lot, but if there is no market for what you're producing, then you're going to make losses. And that could be down to the fact that they don't have this information on what is needed out there. As a market-oriented agriculture expert, and within the context of Sasakawa Africa Foundation, how are you helping these farmers understand what they need to farm and at what point, and what they should do after that?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that question. The thinking of farmers must change, including you. You're also a farmer.
Yeah,
that
no doubt.
we must think about farming as a business. At Sasakawa, we have even gone further to lower it, that farming as a family business. That means within the family, you must think about money first. So because when you have the money, you can buy all the food you want, you
That's
can buy
right.
the salt, dress the way you want, meet your household basic needs, pay school fees, pay health. So there is health, there is more peace in the home that has money.
That's
So
right.
we must think that we want farm as a business. So what are we doing as a Sasakawa Africa Association? One, we have skilled our farmers to we worked with JICA. We have what they call the SHAPE model, Smallholder Horticultural Empowerment Approach, which Sasakawa was a signatory in the TICAD 7 to make sure that that model is spread across all Africa. And basically we have done that in Uganda. So we are training, skilling our farmers to grow, to sell, not grow and sell. What is the difference between growing and selling
You
and
just
growing to
preempted
sell?
that, yeah.
Let me expound on that. Growing to sell is where you have a definite market. I am producing sorghum, I know Uganda breweries will take it.
That's right.
I am producing bananas because I know there's a factory taking it. But then you grow and sell, that is, those are the people you find seated on the road because they don't know the market. And we have showed this working with IFPRI in Jumani. There was a market called a Windley Market. This market had a turnover of 46 billion annually. But the farmers were relaxed, they didn't know about it. So as Sasakawa, we came in, worked with them. In fact, we shall be bringing out the results soon. There's going to be an impact assessment. Farmers are now trying to remove some of that money from the market. They are trying to make sure that they are one of the suppliers. So we have done this. We train on gross margin analysis to show the farmers exactly what is profitable. And then we have done market surveys. Before we intervene in anything, we do a market survey, such that we inform our farmers that when you are producing, this is what the market demands. These are the specs. That means the quality parameters. This is the quantity. This is how they are going to pay. And this is the period that they want this something. For example, I'll give you an example. We worked with Uganda breweries on sorghum because there was high demand for sorghum. And Uganda breweries by then had no sorghum. They used to import from Australia. That is one of the sustainable models we have done on contract farming. We were able to mobilize our farmers, train them, and they were able to supply breweries with sorghum. And Sasakawa is like out of that value chain, but it is moving on its own now. So we always do the market survey. We skill our farmers, and they are able to train, they are able to produce to meet that particular market. So one of the models we've also used is the OSCAR model, One-Stop Center Associations. We have built about 25 bulking centers with our partners like WFP across Karamoja and other regions. So these are one-stop center associations where farmers come for training. They have the machinery that Jack is talking about. They do the post-harvest handling, so they are able to produce the right quality. They have the right quantity, and they are able to have the right price at the right time. So you find these centers have a capacity of about between 300 to 600 metric tons with all the equipment put in there. So when you go there, it's a one-stop center association. You get everything you want there. So these models were pushed them so that farmers are able to access some of these services. And within each group of Sasakawa, we have pushed what they call community savings for investment in agribusiness. So these people save their own money, they are able to lend their own money, and we have now seen the banks coming in to give them more money using what they have saved as a collateral. So if we train you with our small demonstrations, we call them farmer learning platforms, FLPs. When now you want to expand, you go and borrow money from your VSLA. You're doing 1 acre. The market is open, they want more. We have been discussing with breweries, their target is about 17,000 metric tons. So if you are to meet that, then you'll need more money, which your small group will not give you. So they use that as a collateral to go to the bank, get money, and do 5 acres.
You preach what sounds to be a very heavy business imperative when it comes to farming or agriculture, yet food security is hinged on the fact that subsistence level farming must be, first of all, sustainable, as I just said. How do these two things play out, for example, the business imperative and also the need to ensure that there is food security? Very quickly, I would like to go to Dr. Kabiri on regenerative
when you
agriculture.
produce more, then you are able, we expect farmers at least to retain 30% of what they have.
Okay.
So they are selling 70%. When the production is bigger, then they are retaining only 10%. For example, if you are able to produce 20 bags of maize, you'll need like 2 bags to take you for a season.
For the family.
Then the other 18 you are selling to get money. So
right.
you find the more your production is, the more you are meeting the business aspect and then the food security.
Dr. Stella Kabiri, nutrition-sensitive agriculture. When he speaks about the fact that you should think about agriculture as a business, how do you ensure that what you're doing meets the demands of the market in order for you to sell? And that brings in the whole aspect of nutrition-sensitive agriculture. Is this what lies under what I was hearing and the European Union saying that some of the crops or produce coming from Africa is not set to specific standards? Just take us through what NSA, nutrition-sensitive agriculture, is.
Or regenerative
agriculture. Or regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, for regenerative agriculture, the definition varies from different places. The definition that the European Union has may differ from the one the US has and the one the Africa has. For instance, we look at the way agriculture it's monoculture now. We grow one crop per time. If we are growing maize, we grow a lot of maize, wheat, you know, on very large areas of land. But one particular crop only does very little for the soil. If we compared it with intercropping, we intercrop those, say, maize with beans that are legumes, and they are fixing nitrogen from the atmosphere through their nodules. So the interaction in the soil is different. The interaction in the soil is very different. But then when you, what we do, and most of our farmers have been intercropping for generations. Now in Europe, that's what they are trying to bring in, intercropping.
They are trying to do what we did centuries ago.
Yes. When it comes to maybe livestock, they want to integrate with livestock.
That's right.
But them days, how they've been doing it, everything has been separate. But in Africa, we integrate. We have livestock, we have our crops integrated in the same farming system.
That's right.
But the only challenge that our agriculture is not becoming very sustainable because we have farmers now overusing chemicals. Herbicides are good because they reduce the labor you need into clearing weeds, but you're also spoiling the soil structure, you're killing the biodiversity in the soil, and the beneficial microorganisms that help the plant get nutrients from the soil are already killed. So with regenerative agriculture, we are promoting nature-based solutions, but we are also not discouraging, you know, judicious use of chemicals or inputs. You can use the inputs and chemicals, but in a very managed way. So we are also giving this information to our extension workers who deal directly with the farmers, and the farmers we work with. They have this information in their hands. So one of the ways we handle regenerative agriculture is through conservation agriculture and integrated soil fertility management. In conservation agriculture, there are 3 things. We preach minimum tillage. You don't have to dig up the soil too much because you spoil the structure. If you're not ready to plant, don't plow now. Plow when you're almost going to plant.
Okay.
Don't plow and just leave it for a whole month. All the nutrients are disappearing into the atmosphere. Okay. And then we also use intercropping, like I have explained, and also cover cropping. We make sure that the soil is covered at all times. If you are not, if you have harvested, we teach the farmers to return at least 30% of the residues back in the soil, so that they are not nutrient mining. You're not carrying away the nutrients away from the soil. And what has happened is that because of what the farmers have been doing for a long time, they harvest and take away everything. So you come and plant again and take away everything. You're definitely just subtracting from the soil. Okay. So it is no wonder that the soil is not productive anymore. So with regenerative agriculture, we are teaching the farmers how to understand their soil and manage it. when you overuse some chemical fertilizers, you increase the acidity in the soil. How does the farmer manage that acidity?
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially when you hear in some communities people are being told to improve agriculture by using fertilizers, using machinery. Now I do understand that some of these could be detrimental to the soil. Exactly. We are going to take a short break, but before we do, I would love a minute or two to Jacqueline Namsalisi to take us through. You have worked with youth, especially, you know, on environmental conservation. This is integral to maintaining the kind of quality soils that we do need. What are some of these interventions that Sasakawa is undertaking that are actually impactful to the communities that you are working with?
Okay, thank you so much. What we do, the youth, we need to also interest the youth in agriculture. And we are working with like the ICT. We have ICT platforms such as eOmlimisa, and we know that the youth are more into technology. So with that kind of platform, they are aware of the different practices that are going to reduce on the maybe the soil health and all that. But we also take them through the different ways we can, for instance, produce vegetables, backyard gardening. And we tell them how therapeutical that is, growing your vegetables, harvesting it and eating it yourself. There is an excitement when you grow something and eat it. You harvest it and eat it yourself.
Eat what you've grown.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of those are the things that we tell the youth to get engaged with. But also the business aspect, like Anders just talked about it. We engage them into the different businesses that are available in agriculture, especially the private service provision. That is where a group maybe purchases a certain technology and then they hire it out, and that way it is a little sustainable, and these technologies should be also environmentally sensitive. But also we take them through the crop rotation, the intercropping practices, just like that, what Dr. Kabiri was explaining. All
right, I'm afraid we're going to have to take a break, but of course the conversation continues. You are watching a special program where we are discussing the building of sustainable and resilient food systems for improved food security, nutrition and income of smallholder farmers in Africa. When we return, we shall be delving into how climate change is affecting some of these developments and how exactly mitigation efforts can be undertaken in order to ensure that the food systems are effective, but also the business imperative is achieved. Do stay with us. Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us here on a special program where we are talking agriculture and everything that is designed to ensure that it becomes more effective but also productive. I love the business imperative in agriculture. The need to grow crops so you can make money, not just eating. Of course, that is something we shall have a little bit more information on. Just to, again, introduce my guests or remind those that have been with us. Dr. Stella Kabiri is the lead regenerative health at Sasakawa Africa Association. We also have Andre Okrori, who is the head of market-oriented agriculture at the same association. And on my immediate left, we have Jacqueline Namsalisi, and I will stay with Miss Namsalisi on that. What are the practices that make agriculture nutrition sensitive?
Okay, thank you, Chris. So with Sasakawa, like, it's a holistic kind of value chain approach, and we think that planning is everything. We take our farmers through the planning structure. What are they going to plant this season? How marketable is it? But most importantly, how nutritious is it? And this brings me to the partnerships we have with the likes of Harvest Plus, who give us planting materials for the biofortified foods. And these include the orange flesh sweet potatoes, the iron-rich beans, the quality protein, and soon Narrow is to give us, hopefully they will give us, we'll partner with them so that we can now access the black rice or the low glycemic rice. Yes. So those are some of the planning activities that we take our farmers through, and they also need to appreciate the need for them to engage into these in the crop production. And this comes as a result of those awareness, the nutrition awareness. We don't just blindly tell them grow this. We of course focus on the needs and the nutritional contents and the reason why they should plant certain crops, because like maybe that was not introduced, or it was introduced probably. The districts where we work, we select them according to the needs, either the agricultural needs or the nutritional needs or the marketing bit. So if we take the farmers or work with them through the process of assessing their need, that will give us leverage on exactly how we need to intervene. So that is one way. We also take them through the good agronomic practices, which I believe Dr. Kabiri will expound on. And some of these include the fertilizer application. We know that the soil, how rich the soil is, will also determine the nutritional content of the food. Yes. And the crop rotation, the intercropping, how do we make it sustainable so that there is food security, but also nutrition security? In the sense that if you planted beans, you know that the soil is going to benefit through the nitrogen fixation, and definitely the maize will also gain some nutritional benefits from that nitrogen. So when we intercrop maize and beans, that in its way, we are also making it nutrition sensitive. And then we go through at the vegetative stage, how do we manage the crops? Which fertilizer, or rather which herbicide do we use? Or if at all we need to use it. In this case, we are discouraging use of fertilizer because of the soil structure and how Dr. Kabiri was able to describe how the soil gets distorted. But we also have the post-harvest. How do we take the farmers through the post-harvest practices that are going to retain the nutrition, the nutrients in the crops? By beating maize, for instance, you're exposing maize to cracks, and this is going to reduce the certain nutrients. You
mean this ground pounding?
No, we use sticks. So for us, we call it punishing your harvest with sticks. And you cause cracks. These cracks will definitely, even marketability,
that's right,
that will not be good enough. But also it will the fungi will easily attack these broken maize because the nutrients are now exposed. So some of those practices are the ones that we consider nutrition sensitive. And then which type of technologies do we use? Yes, and that's where maybe we talk more about the different technologies that we have, and those you
will take us through the different technologies a little bit later. But allow me go to Dr. Stella Kabiri. The earth, or the soil rather, is the earth's greatest carbon sink. That is down to, as far as I can remember, a basic photosynthesis. When you see what is going on, the farmer must be confused out there. You want produce, but you also want to stay sensitive to the fact that the soil should be given a chance to regenerate. Now, these are more like competing factors. And to the average farmer, the one in the rural areas that cannot afford to, you know, get this knowledge as effectively or as promptly as they should, they resort to what works best for them.
Okay.
How should they move?
Okay, thank you very much. It is a very, regenerative agriculture is a very interesting aspect because it handles climate change in two ways. The technologies we promote for regenerative agriculture help the farmer adapt to climate change.
Yeah.
But as they're also adapting to climate change, like the aspects I have told you, build up carbon in the soil, they are also mitigating against climate change. And some have defined it like as carbon farming, because it's about taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's taken by plants as photosynthesis, and also if it stays in the plant or it stays in the soil, if you leave the crop residues there, then you have sequestered it in the soil. And when we also promote technologies like agroforestry, that they have two uses, to the crop and also to the environment. So with regenerative agriculture, we want the farmers to realize the importance of that their farming practices are the ones that are going to determine whether their soil is productive for future generations. And we make sure that and the understanding also, we don't discourage the use of fertilizers, because you know, fertilizers really boost the crop, but they have to be used judiciously. Let's target the area around the crop, the soil, the crop roots and the soil, just that area. We shouldn't be wasting it, because even right now, because of what you have seen with the Ukrainian war, fertilizers are extremely expensive. They were very expensive before in Uganda, and it's worse off now, and the story is probably not going to change anytime soon. So whatever resource you have the input, use it well and carefully. So how do we do that? Most of the fertilizers that are used on cropland, 70% are lost. The farmer applies 70 are lost. Either they are leaching or they go back into they volatilize into the atmosphere, also causing more greenhouse gas emissions. So we are training the farmers to use these fertilizers and chemicals judiciously, because herbicides and pesticides protect the crop, but fertilizers improve the yield of the crop. So we teach them how to use them really, really carefully, and also taking care of the soil. We also want them to know.
Do you monitor them after teaching them? Do you go back to them and find out whether exactly what you taught them is what they're doing?
That is exactly what we are starting to do with the regenerative agriculture. We have to follow up these fields and show the farmer the difference of the regenerative agriculture practices before and after. And they have to really have this information with them, the chemistry of the soil, the physics of the soil, and the biology of the soil. Yeah.
Mr. Okirori, yes, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says the world could be teetering on a population of around 10 billion by 2040, thereabout. And all these people will need food that must be produced in a sustainable manner. Is there a financial ecosystem that supports this, away from interventions that are either piecemeal? For example, given the population of the African continent, we cannot say Sasakawa Africa Association meets all this. Are you part of an ecosystem of financing mechanisms that can bring money into this whole sector and do the kind of effective, sustainable agriculture that we want?
Thank you very much. Yes, the world population is growing. The soil is not increasing. I've not gone to any labor ward where they produce land or soil. So, but the population is increasing. Yeah. And if you look at some of the ILO, they are saying there are 11 million youth, qualified youth, that are being churned onto the market every year. So all that is pressure. There is urban pressure. They are migrating to the urban areas, looking for social amenities. That's right. They are running away from agriculture. What have we done as Sasakawa to mitigate that? One, we want to make agriculture sexy, very nice, so that even you, Chris, on your coat, you should be confident to say, I am a farmer.
That's right.
And you know, if you go to a big workshop those days and you say you're a farmer, people look at you with this big eye, that a farmer.
And you're looking like that.
And you're looking like that. So this is what we are trying at Sasakawa. So what are we going to do? One, we want to cut the cost of production. And by cutting the cost of production, for example, Dr. Sellers just talked, we want to use fertilizers, but in an economical way. There must be economics.
That's right.
That means we're also going to be working with companies like VermiPro, because we did a calculation that in an acre of maize, farmers go through that maize 22,200 times. So that is a big cost, because every time, one, they are planting.
Yeah.
So if you calculate, there are 44,444 plants on on 1 acre. So every time they are planting, they are adding fertilizer, they are top dressing, they are doing. So why don't we cut the cost of production? One, we want to cut the cost of production. For example, we did one time calculate the cost of production in Busoga region. They were producing maize at 800 shillings per kilo, but we want to cut that cost of production to 300. Such that even if someone sells maize at 400, he's in business. So one is to cut the cost of production. The second is to improve production per unit area. So we are still talking of 10 bags per acre, 20 bags per acre. We should get to 40 bags to 45 bags per acre, so that we are able to improve our production within that limited space. We should be able to produce more. Then we are able to sell more and feed more people. We should be able to cut the cost of the post-harvest losses. If you look at, Jackie will tell you that I think even FAO, I don't know whether they have the statistics, there is little after being produced out of 100% of our production. It is only like about 40 or 30% that enters your stomach. The rest is lost. One, the pests are eating. It is either going to rot, it is going to be wasted. You just go to Karere and you see the post-harvest losses there. The bananas are rotting. That is climate change. That is money rotting. So we need to calculate that and show the farmers this is money that is rotting. That is food that would have gone to our stomachs, or that is food that would have been bought by someone. So as Sasakawa, we are trying to make sure that all what is produced ends up on the table and ends up in your stomach.
On the shelves.
If you go to hotels, people are still eating food and not finishing. That is loss. If you calculate and counter that and put it into monetary value, you'll find there's a lot of money.
Ideally, they've paid for it. So where is the loss?
The loss is because you're not using it. You should be eating and utilizing it.
Okay.
In fact, the government of Uganda should adopt a policy whereby, one, you buy the food. For example, you buy a plate at 10,000, and then if you eat and you leave, they should go and reweigh that, and you pay for that.
Wow.
Because
aren't you going to cause a bit of a crisis where people
there is no crisis,
eat too much?
because you have to order and eat what you are able to finish. Otherwise, that you have left should have fed another person, maybe in Karamoja or any other place. And that is environmental decay, because you are using a lot of oxygen to make sure that that food is broken down. So we have to bring all that into play.
That's right. Dr. Stella Kabiri, we are entering the final bend of this discussion. I would like you to enlighten us. Climate change is causing a lot of differences in how communities respond or even adopt. You find, for example, that in the highlands, it affects them differently than the lowlands. Does regenerative agriculture change according to the effects of climate change? For example, does every community have to do something different because of the circumstances that it finds itself in?
Okay. Thank you for that. You have highlighted something very important. The way agriculture was being done, say in the 60s or 70s, where they were teaching us how to do, even when we were in primary school, terraces to stop soil erosion, building bands. These are things, because of the current generation of farmers, some farmers have forgotten the importance of that.
That's right.
And you find it's raining and a lot of soil is disappearing, and organic matter is only held between 30 centimeters to 1 meter of the soil. So it's very superficial, it's really on the surface. So with the effects of climate change, when it rains a lot and there's a lot of flooding, it has carried away all the organic matter. And so the farmer has to start afresh. And sometimes it's not even in the highlands, just the way the terrain of your garden is, you have to be sure how you manage water or how you conserve water and the soil on that garden to preserve it. So of course, with the effects of climate change, it is these effects are exacerbated further, and that's why now we need the farmers to be fully aware of this resource they call soil. And it's not just a growing media where you just put in a crop, put fertilizers and walk away. Care for it. When you harvest, don't take away everything. Bring back some of the things you harvested, the residues, and mulch it for the next season.
Okay, thank you very much. I will allow Jacqueline Namsalisi to, well, do something. I would be remiss, for example, if I finish this discussion without talking about children and the women. Malnutrition is very rampant. I don't know how Sasakawa Africa Foundation factors in malnutrition and the plight of children, and especially the women who are engaged in much of this agriculture. Very quickly, in a minute or two.
Yes, it is sad to note that Uganda, among the countries that we think shouldn't be suffering from malnutrition, is actually affected badly. And because it's Pearl of Africa, so I believe the people who came up with this Pearl of Africa might have seen how fertile the lands are, but still we are suffering from malnutrition. And we need to also educate the public what malnutrition is. Malnutrition can either be undernutrition or overnutrition. So how do we use the food? Mostly, we do not need to misuse the food that God has given us. And after producing the food, how do we now utilize it in the best way possible so that we can gain the nutrients that are embedded within the food? And this is where we also strongly promote the biofortified foods, specifically for the children and for the women of childbearing age, because we know those are the ones who are most affected. And for us to be able to do that, we also engage mostly the partners, because this is a huge issue, and also it requires a lot of funding to get to the lowest of those who need this. So that's why we work with the government, with the extension system that we have, to sensitize our farmers on the value of using well the food, balance the food that you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline Namsalisi. And thank you to Dr. Stella Kaviri, the lead regenerative agriculture at the Sasakawa Africa Foundation. And many thanks to you too, Andre Okror, the head of market-oriented agriculture at Sasakawa Africa Foundation. I do hope the insight and the perspective shared by the officials or experts, I must be very specific, in agriculture has emboldened your own understanding of regenerative agriculture, for example, and how best you can do to improve the food system across the continent. This conversation will continue, and of course you can go and visit Sasakawa Africa Foundation, all their social media platforms and the website, so you can be abreast with exactly the kind of interventions they are undertaking. It's been a pleasure hosting, and of course thank you for your company. I'm Chris Higenyi. That will do it for now.